Hi, this is Susan Bennett, the original voice of Siri. Here's what's coming up today on another great episode of On the Nose with Randall Kenneth Jones.
I really wanted to know what was going on backstage. So when Carson was doing the Aunt Labby sketches, which was definitely he was borrowing from Jonathan Winters, he'd have the purse and he'd be hitting the crew members playfully before the sketch and getting into character. So talking to people like the guy who held the curtain open for Johnny for 20 years, those are the stories that I lived for. And I was really happy to cover the New York years because we both know that the first 10 years, most of it was wiped out. So just to hear the first person accounts and just do research and kind of really cover that New York period was important to me.
If you believe that everyone you meet knows something you don't know, then you're ready for the next bold evolution of the Jones Show podcast. On the Nose with Randall Kenneth Jones introduces you to people who are in the know and ready to share their special brand of know-how with you. From artists, authors, and activists to entertainers, educators, and entrepreneurs, On the Nose will elevate your ability to influence the world we share. Here's the host of On the Nose, Randall Kenneth Jones.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's episode of the game show everybody loves, Does Wikipedia Lie? Does Wikipedia Lie, the game show, and who is our contestant today?
I think it's Mark Malkoff.
It is Mark Malkoff. You are the contestant on, actually, this is the first ever episode of Does Wikipedia Lie? I mean, the first one developed for you. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh goodness, I was obsessed with Johnny Carson. So for 12 years, I did a podcast about Johnny Carson for 8 years. I did for 4 years. I wrote a book about Johnny Carson. Always in the late night. When I was a kid in Hershey, Pennsylvania, I would go and drive into the city to go to Saturday Night Live and go to see Letterman at NBC. And I just fell in love with the medium of television. It was just something I was into. And I worked on a bunch of shows, Spin City, Michael J. Fox, Letterman, Colbert Report. So I worked in TV, and it was definitely a dream come true to be there. And I have done a lot of comedy stunts that have gotten national attention. I used to make my living. So yes, I think that's where you're going on Wikipedia. I think
Perfect
that's where you're going.
segue. True or false, Mark Malkoff, did you ever attempt to visit all 171 Starbucks franchises in Manhattan in a single day?
I did, and I almost died. I did a video where I wanted to see if it was possible to go to every single Starbucks in Manhattan, all 171 in less than 24 hours, make a purchase and consume something. So I had to go to a store every 7 minutes for 23 hours straight. Hot July day on a bicycle. Not a good idea. It took 2 months of planning, but that did happen.
Next question, Mark Malkoff. Yeah. Did you once move into an IKEA store in Paramus, New Jersey for a week when your apartment was being fumigated?
I did move in, and I did get their permission. It took a little bit of back and forth, but that was actually a lot of fun, and it was much nicer than my queen's apartment. Didn't want to leave.
Malkoff, question 3.
Yes, let's do it.
Did you ever live on an AirTran jet for 30 days in order to conquer your fear of flying?
I did. It was a commercial airplane. People would get on and off, and I stayed on. I never went into an airport or public for a whole month. My wife, Christine, they would book tickets with her on the weekends just to see me. And I couldn't shower for a whole month. I had to clean myself with baby wipes. And I was flying like 5-8 times a day, and I was a bundle of nerves. But every airline pilot wanted to meet me, and they kind of coached me through my fears. All turbulence is being in the ocean and going over a wave. It's driving over gravel. So about after a week, my fear started to go. And they put my face on the airplane the last day, and it was there for 6 months all around the country. Very surreal.
Mark Malkoff, what is the number of the most movies you ever watched on Netflix in a single month?
See, this was a blur. I wanted to do a video experiment to see the best value I could get for my Netflix subscription, and I watched 242 films to get the price down to like I forget how many cents each film was. And then Netflix found out about it, and they flew me out to Los Gatos, California. And they made it Mark Malkoff Day. I got to meet Reed Hastings. But my mind was mush. It sounds fun in theory to watch a lot of movies, but after a couple days, I don't remember some of the films. I was so out of it.
It's that scene from Addams Family Values where they lock them in the cabin and they make them watch The Sound of Music or whatever that like
Oh gosh, yes.
nonstop.
It's Christopher Plummer says The Sound of Mucus. Yeah.
Final question.
Yes,
What,
let's do it.
Mark Malkoff, what is the craziest thing you did yesterday?
Gosh, yesterday. I'm just trying to think what I did yesterday that was crazy. I wish I had something and so boring. Um,
Brush your
n-
teeth? Did you brush your
brush. I
teeth?
did brush my teeth. I brushed my teeth twice on that. Um,
Wow.
I wish I had
Wow.
something. I played with the cats, maybe.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
I got nothing. I wish I had something that was memorable. But I
You
got
are
nothing.
you were
I live
today's
in New
big
York City. You would think that I would have something.
you were today's big winner on the first episode of
Mm,
Does
boom.
Wikipedia Lie?
Yes. Yes. I used to work
Oh,
on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, so I used to be in the game show world. And that was amazing working with Regis because he's a showbiz legend. I mean, yeah.
sidebar, he called me, my friend Phil Buth,
Oh
who
wow.
was the head of Good Morning America. He's done this show for like 10 years
Mhm.
from 85 to 95. I wrote a column on him in the newspaper and I wanted to surprise him. And I called Regis. He called me back. And I
He's
will
a
have to
good man. He
say,
was a good man.
oh,
Yeah.
he treated that 15 or 20 minutes as if I was the most important thing and the most important person in the
He
world.
was a pro. He would sign autographs. He was one of those people, and you and I both know this, that there's certain famous people that just love signing autographs. People think I don't want to bother this person, but him and his friend Don Rickles lived for that attention, and he would sign things, take photos. But he treated everybody the same, a A-list movie star to somebody that was just wanted to say hi to him. He was really a really nice guy. It was exciting to be on the number one TV show and have this guy who was up there in age. It was his really the biggest break he ever got. And it's only because I guess Phil Donahue turned it down.
Well, I tell you, we're here now. We're going to segue again.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Let's do
segueing
it.
again. Your new book, your new book, Love
That is, I wrote that. Yes.
Johnny Carson, one obsessed fan's obsession. I'm having trouble visualizing that now.
Yeah.
One obsessed
Yeah.
fan's journey to find the genius behind the legend. I
That's right.
devoured this book.
Oh, wow.
You gave me my childhood back in a
Oh,
profound way. Interesting is the show premiered when I was less than a month old.
sure.
I was born in 1962, but
Yeah.
Joan Embry, Tiny
Yeah.
Tim, Tommy Newsom. I loved Tommy Newsom when he would sub
Absolutely.
in. The
Yeah.
people that the Aunt Blabby, Karnak. I mean, just reading this profoundly special
Oh, thank you
book.
so much.
And it's a page turner, and it's
Oh,
because you organized it by decade and
we
just
we
highlighted the entire 30-year
we
run
tried.
of the show.
I really wanted to know what was going on backstage. So when Carson was doing the Aunt Labby sketches, which was definitely he was borrowing from Jonathan Winters, he'd have the purse and he'd be hitting the crew members playfully before the sketch and getting into character. So talking to people like the guy who held the curtain open for Johnny for 20 years, those are the stories that I lived for. And I was really happy to cover the New York years because we both know that the first 10 years, most of it was wiped out. So just to hear the first person accounts and just do research and kind of really cover that New York period was important to me.
No. I know that because the curtain puller guy, which I loved that, but like I had the announcer on Judge Judy, like
Wow.
the guy who had to interview
Yeah,
everybody
sure.
after the show.
Yeah.
And I mean, those angles are fascinating. And I
I would
loved
agree.
that you took those particular approaches. Okay, what's with the obsession? Why are you now? Obviously, we've
Sure.
established that you're obsessive. This is not a difficult
Sure.
thing for us to
Okay.
get. You're a dog with a bone.
Politely obsessive. Politely,
Yeah.
though. That's what I try
Why
for.
him? Why this show?
I was really just into entertainment like you were. Classic comedy. I was 5 or 6 years old. My dad was showing me Stanley Kramer's It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I knew who Buddy Hackett, Jerry Lewis were. And this was my world. 5 or 6 staying up on a Friday to watch Johnny Carson. And I had so many questions about Carson and the show and how they did it. He would do primetime anniversary shows. And I would record it on VHS and watch it over and over again. Him with the animals, Johnny with the kids, Johnny with the civilians, like the potato chip lady. with Rodney Dangerfield, Rickles. It was this party. But surprisingly, for a show that was that famous, that dominated American culture for 30 years, there wasn't much accessible literature about what went on behind the scenes. And it just fueled them. Johnny left on October 22nd, 1992, and my questions only rose in terms of what I wanted to ask and what I wanted to know. And that was what happened with the podcast. They just didn't realize I talked to over 400 people.
Well, I realize, and you wove it all. You went back. It's like Downton Abbey, upstairs and downstairs. You went backstage and in front of the stage, and you came into our living rooms. I mean, you effortlessly went back and forth between them. If you could say to me, he's been off the air now for 23. No.
It's over 30 years. He's
30
been
years.
off the air for more years than he's been on, which is unbelievable. It's hard for me to believe that, and I have to remind myself that that's the case.
You know, I have to ask myself, would we be here today without him?
He was probably maybe the biggest star television ever produced. He really took that late night, that model to, I mean, no one back then, people did the show for 4 or 5 years. Jack Parr, Steve Allen. It didn't, no one ever occurred to Carson that somebody could do that for 3 decades, dominate. I mean, in 1971, he is watching all this competition at 11:30. He's watching his own show in his apartment, and then he has David Frost, Dick Cavett, and either Merv Griffin or Joey Bishop. But he had competition, and just the fact that this guy was able to dominate for 30 years and it had so much influence on the country is unbelievable.
Why? Why do you think? This is the biggest question. It's an obnoxiously big question.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think he was able to achieve that level of domination?
I mean, his Midwestern Nebraskan roots never went away. He definitely played to the cities. He was hip enough to play to the Midwest. There was just a likability about him. The people that I talked to that knew Carson the most told me consistently that he was the same person on and off. It was a small group of people that he was friends with that really knew him, but they said he was almost the same person on and off. And I don't think you can go in front of the American public for 30 years and not be yourself out there. Now, when he wasn't on camera, he was a shy person if he didn't know people. And for self-preservation reasons, he would shut down sometimes. People in public would sit down at his table at restaurants. They'd grab him by his arm. The FBI had to protect him many times, threats on his life. But yeah, he had a curiosity. We both know that he would listen to his guest and not try to top them. His rule was, I'm going to make my guest look good. And
exactly.
I think that he was just his manners. I mean, Merv Griffin made the mistake of Tiny Tim trying to make fun of Tiny Tim, and the audience turned on Merv, and Johnny never did that. It would have been the easiest thing for him to make fun of somebody like the potato chip lady, but he treated all these people with so much respect and depth. People that were 100 years old on the show. I mean, he would put these people that a lot of them hadn't been on an airplane, certainly not on television, and make them feel comfortable. He had a skill set that I don't think anyone else had, because he could ask his question, then edit in his head and go through the Rolodex of jokes and pull things out. The way that he was able to do that show for 30 years, it's a master class on how to do an interview.
Which I don't have. I don't have advanced people to call you and do pre-show interviews.
Yes.
We talked.
Pre-interviews help. Yeah, pre-interviews definitely help. Carson had a certain people, though. They would throw out the pre-interviews. Steve Lawrence, Betty Hackett, Rickles were people that would throw out. They would have it just in case, but they would never get to it. And to have somebody to be able to sit down where you could be that interesting for 2 segments and just talk back and forth is really, really special.
I found it interesting, a quote from the amazing Kreskin in the book, whether it was Burt Reynolds or a hog farmer, he made the star feel like a regular guy and the regular guy feel like a star.
I think that's true. Like, Elizabeth Taylor was petrified to be on the show, and she came on February of Johnny's last year in 1992. Johnny made her instantly feel comfortable. There was something about his energy and his aura. Like, his staff said that sparks would be flying off of him when he did the show, and you shook his hand. It was like shaking hands with a nuclear reactor. He had just had so much charisma, so much coolness, and he was able, to make the A-lister just feel like a regular person. And then you would have the hog farmer that would come out with all these lights and cameras and get laughs and just be so excited. And Carson just would put them at ease, and they loved it. I thought that was so funny to talk about the potato chip lady for a second. Jennifer Tilly, who's still a big star, she got bumped. She told me for the potato chip lady because they would put those people on first. They would put the civilians on first. Now it's all A-list celebrity
Mhm.
obsessed. We're going to put them first. Then Carson would put these people on first. And if it was going well, they would bump big stars for these people that, again, were not famous. And I think that was Carson's brilliance. He knew what the audience wanted.
When I read the book, because there's so much that's been said about him being standoffish,
Sure.
then there's, who was he?
Yeah.
I'm not a person that feels I'm entitled to know a celebrity's personal life.
Mhm.
What I love about these types of books is I see them as a whole person now. I see him much more as a complete person. And my comment that I wrote down was, to me, having read the book, he is a combination of ego, paranoia, compassion, and above all, loyalty.
That was his most important trait, was loyalty. I think you
Yeah.
really hit it. I mean, he would talk about his struggles on the air. He would talk about that he struggled with drinking. He would say, I'd have one drink too many and I turned into Attila the Hun and I want to fight the place. He would talk about being overly competitive is something he struggled with as well. And was very, very sensitive. He didn't like being corrected, even if there was a fact. Like Fred DeCordova corrected him once on air and he wasn't happy. And Doc Severinsen was smart. Johnny's like said, I love that song that you played and said the title, and Doc knew that wasn't the song, but he didn't correct Carson. Carl Sagan was the person that corrected Johnny twice in one segment. It was his friend. He had been on 18 times, and Johnny was so embarrassed he never had Sagan on again.
Oh, I just did a piece for a segment. I'm directing a production of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Tell Me on a Sunday.
Oh,
and
wow.
I did this segment for it. And
Yeah.
I know the host, and she called the show Talk to Me on a Sunday, and I corrected her.
It's hard.
I'm banned from her show now.
You could be. It was one of those days. Carson had people he would consider that having people into his home, and he expected people to have certain manners. So if they said something off color, they were gone if they had bad manners. Or someone like William Shatner would not let Johnny get a word in for like 3 minutes, was long winded, didn't stick to the pre interview, was boring the audience, boring Carson. And then Shatner turns his back to Carson, which was another pet peeve of Johnny, to talk to Buddy Hackett, who was the guest prior. And then Shatner, remember back then, Johnny would say, and my guest tonight, William Shatner, is on TJ Hooker on Saturday nights on another network. They couldn't say the network. And of course, Shatner said, watch my show on ABC. And they had to bleep that. So Johnny said, no way this guy's ever coming back. He expects the manners to be there.
A list of the people who were banned and why they were banned
Oh,
and how they misstepped and stuff like that. I can say that no one has been banned from On the Nose.
Oh, that's good.
So
It is one
far.
of those things, like a big star like Jerry Lewis yelling at the staff, a staff member. Lewis probably didn't think that was a big deal, but Johnny would not allow anybody in his staff to be treated like that. And Jerry Lewis was banned from the show. I mean, he was a guest host fixture, and it did him in.
My friend Lucia Kaiser worked for Carson.
Sure.
Yeah.
Love, love, love Lucia. Today, the day we're recording this, happy birthday, Lucia. Today is your birthday. One comment she made to me, because she was one of the few, if maybe even the only female at that time on his staff, as you said in the book, he was fiercely protective of the way the women on his staff were treated. And I have to add, too, one of the observations you made, which came back to me as I read it, the number of Black entertainers that he was hosting on the show. Della Reese, Flip Wilson,
Pearl Bailey, Cosby. There were
and what it is I as a young child just saw entertainment. I didn't see color.
Sure.
I didn't see color. I just saw what was possible. And so I had never really occurred to me how extraordinary that could have been considered at the time. I saw talent.
Harry Belafonte, certainly in 1968 in February, when he was having people like Martin Luther King on and Bobby Kennedy, and NBC was terrified. And that was Johnny giving Harry Belafonte, who we agreed with politically. Johnny didn't think he could do his views publicly, so he gave Harry Belafonte the microphone. And he put those people on. He championed. He had Diane Carroll, Lola Falana, Diana Ross guest host the show. Vicky Carr. They really were pretty good in terms of doing that. They tried once with Red Fox, and he was not the most reliable person. I don't know if you've heard, there's some difficulties with him, and I think it was the day of or whatever, the day before, they just couldn't have him do it. So, but they tried.
There's a reason for this. How would you, well, obviously it's my show, I should have a reason for the questions I ask you.
Yeah.
How would you, based on this information, the Carson podcast, millions of downloads, still out there,
Yes. We just released a new episode. We're still doing some new
Yeah.
ones, believe it or not. Yeah.
How would you define star quality based on all of this? I bet you haven't been asked that yet.
Oh no, it's good. Goodness. Back then, it's like they would take courses if you were under contract with the studio on how to carry yourself and how to be glamorous. There was just an aura of a certain celebrity. Carson could recognize that someone like an Audrey Hepburn or Steve McQueen, where he would just be a little tongue tied. There was just something about intrinsic inside of them, where they would just people on staff said Streisand was like that at 20 years old. You just knew that she was going to explode as a star. Just the way it's a talent. I think the way that they carry themselves. I don't know if that happens as much anymore, but there was something dignified the way that they dressed and the way they handled themselves, even off stage.
I have something to run past you. For one
Yes.
thing, I cannot have this lovely lady on the show because we've lost her, but I interviewed Cheetah Rivera
Oh wow,
many years ago. And I said to her, because I'd been obsessed with her for a very long time,
That's just
Broadway
great.
star, huge Broadway star,
course.
Cheetah Rivera, because I was so obsessed with Gwen Verdon. And I said to her, I first discovered you, Cheetah, on the Chicago cast recording with Gwen.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm kind of nervous, to have you on the show. I'm a little bit nervous. So Cheetah Rivera says to me, you think you're nervous? I just met the Pope.
It puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
And I'm like, you won. Okay, Cheetah, you won. So I was calm. But let me tell you, I said to her, Cheetah, you taught me what star quality was. And she was like, please tell me, what is it? It's joy.
Oh, that's great that analogy. Yeah, they definitely take pride
Dick
in what
Cavett.
they do.
Dick Cavett said to you, the 90 minutes he was on stage were by far the happiest times of his life. If that's
right.
true, that's
Yeah.
joy.
Yeah, he said right before he died, the last year of his life, he said that definitely the happiest I was is when I was doing the show. He would just get such a high out of doing the show, just to be in front of all those people and get to talk to people he worshiped, like Jimmy Stewart, and do the show and forget about his personal life, which a lot of times wasn't going well. It was an escape from the wives. It was this that wasn't going well, and kids and things that were going on. There were times where he did have to take substantial times off, where he was devastated when Buddy Rich died. I mean, he cried his eyes out. Watching the monologue, you can just see Johnny's eyes are red, and he's trying to get through the monologue. And then when his son Rick died in '91, he took a month off, and he comes back on the show. And the staff said that they never saw Johnny like that, and they questioned whether he could go on. He was so shattered. And then he did that eulogy about his son at the end. And Carson said it was the hardest thing he ever had to do on TV by far.
I have to shout out to my beloved Shirley Jones, who I've interviewed several times, who's so special, who had said to me, Jimmy Stewart was the nicest man in the world. So I just have to
what I hear as well. Him and Gloria definitely would have been a good time to hang out. Carson wasn't the most social person. He liked his poker games. He would play with Barry Diller and Chevy Chase and Steve Martin, Dan Melnick's house. But he would go over to Jimmy Stewart when they had parties and dance and hang out. And he was like a little kid. When who was it? I think it was Jack Webb called Johnny up and said, "You're coming to my house for a party tonight." And Johnny's like, "I don't know." He was like, "Jimmy Cagney is going to be there." And that was Carson's one of his 3 idols that he wanted on the show that he could never get. So he went over and hung out with Cagney. And again, that kid in Nebraska who was a movie usher at the Granada Theater, that never left Carson. That never left him.
What did Johnny Carson teach you? I'm going to give you a minute because I want you to dig deep. What did Johnny Carson, this experience, what you've learned from him, seeing the shows, let me also add, it's on YouTube, you all. The best thing about reading your book, Love Johnny Carson by Mark Malkoff, is you can go to YouTube, which I did, and actually see so many of the segments that are being referenced as part of the book.
Thankfully.
But what did he teach you?
I think he taught me to be a good listener, and I think doing the podcast and watching a lot of Carson hopefully did that a lot. I tried to let my guests like you actually finish and not interject or interrupt unless it's completely necessary. A lot of hosts we both know will just cuddle up the guest. And Johnny was really good for the most part at not doing that. He was very good at just letting the guest shine. And if it was pertinent information for Johnny to slide in of his own when he was talking to a guest, he would. But I think curiosity, like Johnny, when I watch him, you can just see his mind and where he's going. Curiosity. I think preparation, especially one of the things I really like about him that I think the public would not know is that he would conserve his energy on a show day. He would not be at work all day like a David Letterman. Most of the people were there all day. He knew that it would use up most of his energy. He wouldn't have lunch with anybody or see anybody before the show. So he'd be working at home on the show, but he'd get there like 2 hours beforehand. And people might think cold in the loop, but he's saving it for the show. And when he went out there again, sparks were flying. I mean, people told me when they, especially if he had been off for like 3 weeks, he was so excited to be back. And yeah, they would use that analogy, nuclear reactor, and just go out there and save that energy. And just the fact that he did have to pace himself. I mean, the reason he went down to three shows a week at near the end is he just did not have the energy anymore, and he didn't want the quality to dip of the show.
What does he have to teach us now? Why has he? It's still out there. We still
Sure.
talk about him. You wrote a book about him. We're
Sure.
having this discussion. I believe, and let's give some background. It's so funny.
Sure.
You wrote me and
I
said,
did.
you wrote me. I love small world stuff, and said, I wrote this book. You contacted me years ago to try to get an introduction to Kate Capshaw to get you to do the
Good.
show, which you tried to help Kate. You still need to come
Yeah.
on and do
I
my
hope it happens. I was
show.
shocked she said yes, and only because it was Carson, and because it was all audio only. She said that she did it. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. But we both know you have to ask. But
Yeah,
please
you got to
continue.
ask. I wanted her to do it, but then, so what's so funny, and I love this,
Mhm.
is that you wrote me. I called you in 1 minute,
Yeah, that was
one
so nice.
minute, because I had seen your book on my
Oh wow.
recommended on Amazon. And I was like, I got to call that
Small
guy. I
world.
got to call that back.
Yeah, I
And so I
appreciate
had
it.
seen it, and I
Wow.
wanted this book, and I
Aw.
saw the value in this book.
Thank
So
you.
now, again, why? Why still? What's his value?
Yeah.
What's he still bringing to the world?
Why 30 years later did the late night host still talk about him? Why does he still make huge headlines? Why is his YouTube channel, the official one, over 1 million subscribers with literally billions of views on YouTube of Carson? I think that there was just something so a gentleness about him. There was obviously he was funny. I mean, Jerry Lewis. I was at an event and he said he put Carson up there with Chaplin, which I couldn't believe. I mean, Jerry Lewis, for them to give a compliment like that. I just think he was our friend. He was the likability factor was just off the charts, and I think he just knew how to treat his guests. And I don't think none of the other hosts today have kids on. They don't have the civilians on, and there was just something. He was always safe. He was always through really hard times. Like if you think in 1968, you had Vietnam going on, Martin Luther King was assassinated. Carson's friend Bobby Kennedy. I mean, they lived in the same building, and Bobby Kennedy would go to Carson's office. And Johnny really kept the nation, through his humor and doing that show grounded. And he did it for 30 years, and that's not an easy thing to do.
The number of times that I'm like, okay, well, you just said that. Okay, you just said that. I mean, we're in sync. People have no idea. You keep making all these comments, or you're like segueing directly into my next point, which we know as hosts is golden.
Sure.
I'm quoting you in reference to
Yes,
what you just
let's do
said.
it.
Yet, despite it all, for the next 30 years, he would become the one man who could calm a nervous nation during those anxious moments between wakefulness and sleep. And that's an extraordinary thing to be able to say he could do.
He
Yeah,
could
that's
really
extraordinary.
you could feel the energy of the audience and know when with Watergate it would be okay to make jokes, but when he found Nixon was drinking at the White House and having alcohol issues, he stopped with those Nixon jokes. Same with Wilbur Mills, this politician who was, I guess, intoxicated with a lady of the night, maybe, or a strip or something like that, in a pool. And Johnny, when he found out that he was an alcoholic, stopped with the jokes. He was just really good with his timing, but he played to everybody. He was definitely a safe. He was a rock for really those 30 years. I mean, the Challenger disaster. there were pivotal things where Carson actually wasn't around to guest host. It's amazing to think now, looking back, the day the Challenger exploded, they still went on. Joan Rivers, they made her go on as a guest host, and Dave Letterman did his 12:30 show. Now they would have preempted it and canceled the show, but it would have been interesting to see how Johnny would have handled that. I heard the audio of Johnny talking about Martin Luther King being assassinated just days prior, and his eulogy of that, and they did a big tribute show, and just the way that he handled it. He had Sammy Davis Jr. and then Diana Ross on, and he handled it eloquently, and that definitely is a skill set.
Please let me be your advocate, you all. I mean, my favorite thing to do, people who read, is to read a book and be blessed with the chance to talk to the author. This is so special.
Oh, thank you.
So special. To those, I'm 63, those are my age group. Yeah. Yes, you get your childhood back. You get all, look at the names that we've mentioned today that are so extraordinary. But there was something else that was said during the show. Mark Simmons had made a comment that I said, excuse me.
Mark Simone. Yeah, I talked to Mark Simone as a radio host, and he met Johnny Carson. He knew Johnny Carson a little bit. Yeah.
What he said, and what you quoted him as saying in the book is, when you were a little kid growing up, Carson taught you this is how to be an adult. Yeah. This is how to have a personality. This is how to conduct yourself in life. Oh, I thought that was beautiful. And I
really did
so
too.
So true.
Because Carson, if somebody younger is watching him, like, he was risque, but it was a fine line. He was still very always polite. He would push the envelope a little bit, but it was always a party. It was always good fun. He never was mean-spirited like some of the other hosts. Jonah Embry told me some of the hosts would make fun of the animals, and the audience would turn against them. And Johnny knew you just treat everybody with respect, and it worked for him for through those 30 years.
I am hoping that that's what I have in common with him, is respect and appreciation and joy.
You too.
And I got a joy out of this. Again, love Johnny Carson. One obsessed fan's journey to find the genius behind the legend, Mark Malkoff, the first ever winner of Does Wikipedia Lie? The new game show exclusively on the nose.
Trademark that.
Who has promised me that he's going to do something more exciting this afternoon, so he can call me tomorrow and tell me he did something.
Yes, I am. Actually, I'm doing something tonight. I'm doing something Johnny Carson related tonight, so that would be good. I will. Yeah, we can.
So, what a treat. Mark Malkoff, MALKOFF.com, yes. MarkMalkoff.com. I end the show. I changed the name from when you first knew the show, Jones.show, to On the Nose, KNOWS. And not just because this is so big. The nose is so big, and I know that.
Yeah.
But I end with this question.
Sure. Let's do it.
Mark Malkoff, what do you know?
What do I know, just in life, or Johnny Carson related?
What do you know? I ain't helping you. No, you do this for a living. You should be able to.
Okay, what I know is, gosh, it's time goes by really quickly if you're not conscious of it. I really do focus on work, and I try to have a balance. I've been better with the balance, but I do get work obsessed, and I think really taking time and being very careful just to be able to just have relationships and keep that part of my life. I think is good. Just to maybe have more confidence in myself. Like the more somebody, like when I started the Carson podcast, I would interrupt guests sometimes. People would tell me this, and it was constructive criticism. And it's okay to try things that somebody might not be good at and get better. It took me about 4 months to get good and to be okay as an interviewer. And I think it's okay. It's good to try new things, and to be bad is okay for a while. But I think in the end, also curiosity, follow the curiosity. I don't think you can go wrong if you follow your curiosity. I think amazing things can happen, and just always stay curious. Those are some things.
For more information, visit onthenose.com. Please be sure to follow On the Nose with Randall Kenneth Jones on YouTube and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. For On the Nose, I'm Susan Bennett, the original voice of Siri. And yes, I know. Do you? If not, see you next time.